Lynette Howell Taylor and Stephanie Allain were the producers on the Oscars this past year, and they just got their first Emmy nominations for their work. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with both Lynette and Stephanie, and I'd love to know from each of you what it felt like to get your first nomination here, as well as the show itself getting 9 nominations. We could start with Stephanie.
Well, it was so exciting and so gratifying because we loved our show so much, and it was just a blessing to know that the Television Academy and the voters felt the same way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we had the best time doing the show, producing the show, and I think that for me, the team that works on the Oscars is such an incredible team, and we had some new people this year that had never done it before, and so for their work to get recognized also was a thrill, and it's deeply gratifying, and especially when we really get to sort of celebrate it all as a group, which we do.
And Lynette, you were actually nominated last year as a producer on A Star Is Born. What's it like going from nominee to suddenly producing the show the very next year?
You know, the funny thing is, I actually prefer it. Prefer producing the show. And you know, it's really fun, and it's an incredible honor being nominated. But we just really, I like making things, again, it's wonderful to be recognized for your work, and but it was really exciting and a privilege to be asked to do the show, and I come from live theater way back, and so this kind of felt a little bit for me like going back to my roots, and Steph and I didn't really know each other very much before we partnered on this, and we just had the best time, and we had the exact same outlook and ideas for the show, and we were an incredible complement to each other. And so it was just, the truth is, like, it was kind of great being backstage and just being part of putting together the celebration of artists. And so yeah, it was a nice transition, and it's helpful having sort of gone through it as a nominee, knowing what that feels like, and then you want to be able to give that experience in the best way possible to all those artists that were recognized this year in your year.
Yeah. So Stephanie, I'd love to know just how much of a fan you were of the Oscars before you got the job as producer.
Oh, I think like so many people in Hollywood, I was that girl with the hairbrush in front of the mirror accepting a nomination when I was 10. I've watched it every year as long as I can remember. So again, to be asked to produce with Lynette, it was a highlight, a real highlight. And we didn't know each other, and now we're besties. So that was like the cherry on top.
Did you have the same kind of thing, Lynette, where you were just kind of always drawn to the Oscars?
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the Oscars for, again, like as long as I remember. Our house was always the house that hosted the Oscar parties, and you know, did the ballots, and it's, you know, it's just been a part of my youth, and I love that celebration and the glamour and sort of the again, yeah, the celebration of cinema. It's so yes, then to get to produce it was like a dream come true, truly.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember the streaker, you know, so there's been a lot to celebrate over the years of the Oscars.
Yeah. Well, stepping into this role, I would imagine it's kind of a balance of honoring the traditions of why we watch the Oscars year after year, and then also trying to freshen things up and try new things. So what kind of discussions were you having just in the beginning about striking that balance?
Well, I think the one thing that we both thought from the very beginning was we wanted it to have a theatrical feel. We wanted to feel like you were in the room, even at home, to really feel like you were part of something that was a theatrical experience, that had music, that moved. And Lynette and I just immediately keyed in on that as our sort of joyful starting point, because we wanted it to be joyful. We wanted it to be respectful. We wanted it to be inclusive. And all of those things we just kept coming back to as we were hiring people, thinking about the show that we wanted to do, casting it, and So those were, I think, right, Lynette, those were the sort of tenets
Yeah,
that,
I think we would always go back to joy and celebration and inclusion, and that was sort of like our mantra, because there's only so much as the producers, you know, a bulk of the show you don't control. You don't control who gets nominated, and you don't control the acceptance speeches. And so we had to look at, well, what do we control? And the things that we control are presenters, the flow of the show, the design of the show, the look of the show, and you know, and everybody that's hired on the show. And so, you know, I think we had more music than the show has had in a very long time. That was a big part of us, like a lot of musical performances to keep it sort of moving. And we stayed in the room a lot. You know, we really tried to put clip packages on the screens that, you know, we sort of had this incredible set design that was a mix of like old and new. One of the things that the Oscars is pretty well known for, I think, is having physical sets and not being a screen show, you know. But we brought on this new production designer, Jason Sherwood, and he is phenomenal. And he kind of came up with this blend for us where he created this living, breathing movie reel, you know. And so we were able to use that to keep the camera in the room, so that you weren't always kind of cutting out to sort of typical clip reels, and we were able to stay in the room a lot more and have the set sort of be much more a part of the show in a fresh way. And you know, a lot of the look and the feel of the sort of the new design of the show we really attribute to his genius. Like, he's an incredible talent. So that was one of the things that we wanted to change this year.
Yeah, because ultimately it's 24 awards. That's your core thing. And so when you think about putting it together, you always have to keep that in mind. So we you know, opening number, that was a big thing that we knew that we could influence. We knew that we could do something with the musical songs that were nominated. And then, yeah, Jason was great. Ricky Minor, who it was his second year coming back, who's lovely and so talented, really embraced what we were trying to do and bring the music into the room. So it was fun.
Yeah, there really was a big focus on music this year. You did open it with the Janelle Monáe performance, and you had all 5 of the Best Original Song nominees. We had the surprise Eminem performance. Were there any challenges in putting together all of those performances, keeping Eminem a secret, trying to strike the right tone for the opening, all of that?
It was all a challenge. It was all a challenge. You know, I think for us, you know, the opening of the show was really important to us. You know, the show has been opened by white men for a long time, or at least by men for a long time, and either in the form of a musical performance, you know, I think we were really sort of keying in on wanting the show to sort of open with that music performance, which they did last year with Queen, and we thought that was really. And Justin Timberlake did that one year, and it's a great lively way to open the show. And we had really leaned away from the idea of a host as well. We liked that last year. The host sort of becomes the personality of the show, and we didn't really want the host to be the personality. We wanted the show to have its own personality. And so for Janelle, you know, we called her and sort of pitched this idea, and then she just kind of ran with it. And her and her team were phenomenal. And they came up with this idea. We wanted the opening to be a celebration of movies of the year. That was the other thing that was really important to us, is that, you know, often that opening number is either specific to the artist that's doing it, or it's about, you know, the movies that are nominated. And, you know, long before the nominations came out, we wanted to do a celebration of all movies. And so that's what we pitched to her, and asked her to sort of come up with something that would include, you know, visual images, so we could have all the movies behind her on a screen. And then she incorporated the costumes and the wardrobe with her dances to include movies that were nominated, movies that weren't nominated. And so for us, that opening number was really about a celebration of cinema, you know, and especially in a year where there was a lot of there was a lot of controversy about movies that weren't nominated and actors that weren't nominated. And so again, in the spirit of inclusion, wanting to continue to recognize all the incredible work of the year. And that was how we wanted to open the show.
Yeah, and Jamel, who's her choreographer, did an amazing job. I mean, just being in that theater and feeling the dancers in the aisle and all the costumes, we were very, very excited about just working with Janelle, because she's an amazing artist, and her team was lovely. And yeah, it was the most fun.
Eminem was a challenge to keep a secret. We'd had it in the works for months, and we really told nobody. Like, really nobody knew. We had a secret rehearsal on the Friday night that was really secret. We even had a decoy. We had a whole decoy like band set up that we used at the dress rehearsal to throw everybody off. I mean, it was as like planned as you could go. We had a secret recording done, and so everybody thought we were doing something completely different to end that clip reel and that introduction. And for us, we wanted to do a surprise, and we loved the idea that he wasn't there to accept his Oscar when he won it, and so we invited him to come perform all these years later, and we were thrilled that he said yes. And again, in the spirit of wanting to have music and the surprise on the show, which is really hard to pull off. It was, and we're so thrilled that we were able to do it. Like, I literally can't believe we kept it a secret.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah. Well, if I could be a little nerdy about the Oscars for a bit, one of the more interesting new things that you did this year was how you presented the acting nominees, where, usually the presenter announces the name and we see a clip from their performance, then we go to a live shot in the audience, and then it just repeats to the next nominee and the next nominee and so on. But here we saw this montage of clips from all 5 of the nominees, all put together with multiple scenes from the films. And then you would go to the live shots in the audience. So why did you choose to have the acting categories presented that way?
Well, one of the things that we realized, because we watched all of the Oscars for the last 10 years or so before we started putting it together, was we wanted it to feel special and different. And putting them, and by the way, the team that we worked with on the Oscars, they're so talented. I mean, when we said, how can we make this different? How can we blend it together so it doesn't feel so much us against them, me against you, but it's really a celebration. Again, like Lynette said, we came back to how do we celebrate the joy of all of these artists working together, and that idea of melding it just came into being. And then working with Jason, who allowed us to see that on the screen, on the design, felt like a really good fix. And we didn't want every package to look the same. So we really tried to have a lot of variety with the different packages.
Yeah, that was one of the main things that we talked about early on, is how do you sort of go from, traditionally what has been, presenter comes out, talks about movie, and then you cut to sort of full screen at home clip package. And we wanted to, really look at how do we sort of separate that idea. So for the actors, we decided to kind of create like a mini story with their performances. And as Stephanie said, to have it feel less competitive and have it feel more like, look at these incredible, women, and then these incredible men, and the performances of the year, and have it feel like it was telling its own story. And and then some of the other packages, we did a similar thing. Like, sometimes we kept the package in the room, or for the best score, we bringing in a different conductor, and then conducting that that sort of blend of that montage of all the nominated scores, and putting the images on the screen, and trying to celebrate the packages and the each individual awards in a slightly different way than has been done before, and then also within the show from each other, to sort of just keep the show feeling a little fresh and a little alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, you also had certain people introducing presenters like Beanie Feldstein and Anthony Ramos and George Mackay, and also some of the presenter pairings like Gal Gadot and Brie Larson and Sigourney Weaver, Diane Keaton and Keanu Reeves, Jane Fonda presenting Best Picture, all, I think, very inspired choices. And I would love to know how you make those decisions as far as presenters.
We called it our thoughtful pairings, because we did think about it a lot. And the idea for the younger actors to introduce, we wanted to include, that's also about age inclusion. A lot of people, by the time you get to the Oscars, you're a little older. there's so many talented youngsters that deserve to be seen and heard, basically, you know. So we
It was
reached
like a
out.
next gen. It was like, who's
The
coming
next
up?
gen. Yeah, and it was fun to see them. It might have made it a little too long. Like if we ever did it again, we learned so much. But we're proud of that because it definitely upped the inclusion quotient, not just in terms of ethnicity, but in terms of age.
And I think, you know, for you know, we put a lot of thought into, like, wouldn't it be great if we had, you know, Brie Larson and Gal Gadot, you know, two of the biggest female superheroes, with like sort of the ultimate superhero, introducing the first female conductor that's ever been on the show. And so we did put a lot of thought into that, and also wanted to bring you know, comedy was, it's, you know, look, you have to have comedy at the Oscars. You have to be self-aware. You have to be able to make fun of everything, and as well as being celebratory and serious. You know, so we leaned heavily into humor, as I think the show often does and always does. And you know, and we loved Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph. That, you know, they were excellent, and we really tried to sort of give a rhythm to each act of the show, so that there was a balance throughout the whole show. And we put a lot of thought into the rhythm of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, seeing the show come to fruition and the Parasite win at the end, the magnitude of that moment, it was such an affirming moment for so many people. Were there moments for you in watching the show actually play out that you wouldn't have been able to predict or plan, that you just really loved how things kind of worked out?
What do you think, Lynette? I mean,
I
much
mean,
when
the
you're
winners. It's
backstage
the winners.
and
You
you're
don't, you know,
live.
we don't control that. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
control the winners. We don't control the nominees, and we don't control the winners. All we can do is sort of build the show around that. And so it was so gratifying. So many of the winners,
I mean, director,
were incredible.
Director. You know, it was all, and then to see Boone reach out to his idols in the audience, you know, like I felt like that inclusion was palpable. And also, you know, we had the first time we had land dedication, you know, for our Native friends who this is their land. That was something that had never been done before, and we were really proud of that too. But anytime anybody wins, I mean, there's obviously people that we hear are going to win because, you know, there's Scott who like talks to everybody and gets a sense of who might win. But when you have those moments,
people like Gold Derby,
yeah,
you know.
and you, right.
Just saying.
and when you
just had to throw that out there.
Thank you. And when you do that, there is a certain understanding that there's, you know, forerunners who might have a little momentum. So when somebody wins that, you know, is surprising, it always gives the great vibe to the show that it's live, you know. Can't tell you what it's like.
There was a palpable energy in that room on the night, I feel like, and I think that, again, we're responsible for a piece of the show, but the winners make up such the bulk of the show, and there was so much love for the individuals that won this year, and then to top it off with Parasite winning. And you know, it was sort of like one of those moments also, like we were over time, like we knew we'd run long. We knew that like some of the speeches had gone really long, and we had made a decision not to play people off, and it's a controversial decision, and it's a little frowned upon by other people, but we just didn't want to do it. And even though we told everyone we would, but we decided we weren't going to do it. You know, and it felt like that speech was coming to a close. And so there was incredible pressure to start the show, and the lights were sort of going down. And then there was, you know, the sort of the cry from the audience. And I just remember we were like yelling into Glenn's ear, put the lights back up, we're not going out like this.
No, and he was yelling to us, what should I do? What should we do?
We were like, put the lights up.
Gotta go for it. Yeah.
And I was like, we'll have to eat that. We'll eat the pain. Of the running time. But and the articles in the morning. But we just, you know, it's like, it was an incredible moment, and everybody, and they deserved their moment, and they deserved to have their moment to speak, and everybody was on board and with it. So that was it. That was kind of an exciting call for us at the end of the show.
It very much was.
Well, Lynette, Stephanie, thank you both so much for joining me today. Congrats again on the nominations. Very well deserved.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. We really
And
appreciate it.
yeah. And for those of you watching, hit like and subscribe for more Emmy interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your winner predictions.